You look so much like your father.
Your mother's eyes.
Have you ever wondered which of your features of your face come from which parent, your mother or your father, and what are the innate factors that influence your final appearance? Well, a study by researchers at King's College London examined 3D face models of nearly 1,000 UK female twins and revealed that facial features are mostly controlled by genetics. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, this isn't a new concept. I've explained in the past that genetics is like a balloon. It influences how big that balloon can get, but your environmental factors determine if you can actually blow up that balloon to its fullest potential. While we often talk about the environmental on this channel, let's talk about the genetic part, the part that cannot be changed about your face. The researchers at King's College took scans of twin faces using 3D cameras, and they generated thousands of points that are perfectly aligned across the face. And then they measured how curved each face was at each of those points. To calculate the likelihood that those facial features were determined by genetics, researchers then measured how similar these measurements were between identical genes. So two characters who have the same genes and non-identical twins, so those who only share half of their genes. What they discovered is that the following are actually most likely to be genetically determined. So the first is the shape at the end of the nose, so the pronasal. The second is the area above the lips, which is the philtrum. The third are the cheekbones, the fourth are the inner corners of the eyes, and the fifth is the area below the lips. Now, a quick note on hereditary and genes to lay a foundation here. Hereditary is basically just the passing on of genetic traits from parents to offspring. As we all know, human cells have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Chromosomes are the form that our DNA takes in order to get passed from parent to child. Now, a gene is a chunk of our DNA containing information that determines a trait, like, say for example, eye color, baldness, your likelihood of being 6'10" NBA basketballer. In almost all cases, a bunch of different genes determine a single trait called a polygenetic trait. The different variants of these genes are referred to as allele. In this paper titled Genetics of the Human Face, Identification of Large Effect Single Gene Variants, the researchers used data for their analysis of facial features from 3D images of, say, 1,800 volunteers. And now that you have all these participants to help identify the facial features with high heritability, so meaning they come from your parents, they devised a method for obtaining the AGV, which is the additive genetic value of every surface point on a face. From this study's conclusion, among many other things, the main takeaway for us is that the mean heritability of the AGV of the eyes is around 76%, and for the profile is 81%, which means that these areas of the face are highly likely to be influenced by your genes. Now, if you're asking, does it really matter, or what could you possibly gain by trying to understand the point of this video, I'd like for you to take a note that there are several important reasons for exploring the genetics of normal range variation in facial features. It can help explain the age-old question, why do we look the way that we do? For understanding the causes of, say, craniofacial anomalies, so things to do with the skull and the head, or some kind of cleft palate, many factors such as ancestry, sex, eye, hair color, as well as distinctive facial features such as the shape of your chin, your cheeks, your eyes, your forehead, lips, and nose can be identified or at least estimated using an individual's genetic data. This is where the other study, which is quite interesting, titled If Looks Could Heal, Child Health and Paternal Investment, come from. It states that infants who look like their father at birth are healthier 1 year later. The reason is, such a strong father-child resemblance induces a father to spend more time engaged in positive parenting. If you've been subscribed to Coos for a while, you would have noticed that we like to talk about the importance of the eyes and its aesthetics. So continuing with the trend, let's take the example of eye color as a trait to learn how genes work and see how it's influenced by your parents' eye color. GEY gene has one allele that gives rise to green eyes and one allele that gives rise to blue eyes. The BEY2 gene has one allele for brown eyes and one for blue eyes. The allele for brown eyes is the most dominant allele, as you may know from high school biology, and hence it's always dominant over the other two alleles, and the allele for green eyes is always dominant over the allele for blue eyes, which is recessive. So the order goes brown, green, and blue. And if you look at the world population for brown, green, and blue eyes, you'll see that trend as well. For instance, if two parents with brown eyes each passed on a pair of blue eyes to their offspring, then the child would be born with blue eyes. However, if one of the parents passed on a green allele, then the child would have green eyes, and if a brown allele was present, then they would have brown eyes, because it follows that order of brown, green, blue, irrespective of what the other three alleles may be. The gist here is that parents who have the same eye color, so for example brown, can still produce a child with blue eyes if they have the carrier gene, the blue allele in the genetic makeup, and they both pass it on without passing on the brown gene. So in a study from 2006, it was hypothesized that there is differential resemblance between two parents depending on the age and the sex of the child, which suggests that the facial phenotype is biased in response to the costs and benefits of paternal investment. Now, what the hell does that mean? I'll explain it in simple speak. So you have your genes and then you have your facial phenotype. So the way those genes are expressed in reality is sometimes different to how your genes wanted them to be expressed. There is theory that your face is expressed in a way that maximizes your resemblance to your parents, not because there's any specific reason, but rather just to get your parents to invest more into you because you look like them. Crazy when you think about it. What they found is that mothers who claim a paternal resemblance at birth doesn't actually correspond to an actual resemblance of the child later on, which suggests that there's a possible manipulation of the perception of a child's face to resemble more like their parents, and thus increasing the parents' confidence that this is actually their child. So the next time you look at your parents, ask yourself, am I actually related to them? Or did my body make me look like I'm related to them because it's the best thing for my survival?